At the Battle of Gaugamela, Alexander's forces defeated the Persians and Darius. Describe the preparations of both sides for the battle. 10 marks, just 10 marks, okay? Right, let's look at how we'll answer these questions. And the preparations for both sides. Now, what you would do is, in this one, the preparations for both sides, you would briefly put in, now very, very briefly, we're talking about a line or two or even three. You jam in maybe for Alexander here, you'd talk about rest and formation. It is only 10 marks, but rest and formation, and for Darius, and possibly you know, you're talking about there, you're basically talking about Alexander used an unorthodox formation in a type of a box type shape or something like that. So a box type. It's only 10 marks. Okay. So are we able to go and get out 3 things in 10 marks? I mean, you're really going to have to be very, very brief there. Hopefully. It'd be nice if it was 15 marks, you know, because you could say 2 things each part. Darius, his formation, obviously, and lack of rest. You know, these guys stayed in formation all night, standing there, waiting, right? Could you imagine the panic? Could you imagine they're standing there all night and just thinking, when's it going to come, when's it going to come, when's it going to come? Alexander's guys are sleeping and having breakfast. These guys are standing there. They must be nervous, right? So, 10 marks, 5 and 5, all right. You can do that easy enough. I'd be disappointed if you didn't get 10 marks for that. Part B equals 3 paragraphs. No, sorry, pardon me. 9, 8, and 8 equals 25, okay? So you're looking about here about 1.5 pages for this answer. 1.5 pages, 3 paragraphs, half a page each. All right? An account of the battle. An account of the battle. Paragraph 1 equals beginning. Paragraph 2 equals middle. Sorry, that's awful writing. Middle. And paragraph 3 equals the end. Okay, let me divide that up for you. Do you remember when we looked at the battle of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7? Okay, so I'm going for the beginning is equal to 1, 2, and 3, up to the attack of the Scythian chariots. From the beginning of the battle, from Bessus trying to outflank him, up to the attack of the Scythian chariots. The middle part, I'm going for 4 and plus Darius. Just that. Right, the companion cavalry attack. Alexander swings towards Darius. Darius runs away, the middle part's battle. And then I'm going for the 5, 6, and 7. 5 and 7, of course, are related. So I might treat them as a 1 point. Okay, 5 is where Parmenio asks Alexander for help. Okay, where he's struggling, then he rallies. And of course, that means that the retreating Persians come into Alexander's, they start fighting against Alexander's troops who are coming over to relieve Parmenio, and 6 will be the Indian attack where they break the line right the way through. Lovely. That would be a beautiful answer, wouldn't it? Okay. Throw in a few quotes. You might even be looking at 25 out of 25 if you don't produce any learned responses. And a learned response is if you don't use phrases like that appear on the internet from people writing these battles, like hammer and anvil tactic, okay? Which Arrian never uses, and Plutarch, well, Plutarch can't talk about battles anyway. He just talks about omens and signs and things. But Arrian never uses that phrase, so you don't use it, right? If you get it off StudyClicks or if you get it off whatever website you use, right? Use the direct source if you want the marks. Now, I can tell you, when we meet at the marking conference, we're all over that learned response when it comes to certain questions in classical studies, such as battle questions, which everybody thinks is going to come up. Do you see? So the internet is not your friend here, okay? And part C. Part C, I'm looking at a 15, so I'm looking at 8 plus 7, okay? 15 marks, I'm looking at about 3/4 of a page, yeah? 2 paragraphs, 2 distinct paragraphs. The tactics employed by Darius and Alexander. Watch our repetition here. Remember, this is given account of the battle, beginning, middle, end. Comments on the tactics, okay? Comments on the tactics. So we can see a repetition in Alexander's tactics. So we can bring in and we say he used a similar type of tactic with the companion cavalry charge. Mention and misses. Don't go into the details. Mention one line only. Okay, one line only. You comment on the tactics employed by Alexander. They were far superior. You talk about the way he dealt with the threats as well to him. You know, the outflanking movement of Bessus early on in the battle, similar outflanking movement of Mazaeus, and how they dealt with that with their formation. That's a tactic, okay? The other tactic is, of course, how they dealt with the Scythian chariots. That's a tactic, pre-prepared, right? They've done it before. They did it before when they were talking to when they were fighting against the free Thracians or the Trebyllians up in the mountains, separating, you know, this showed the countless hours of drilling and preparation. It's also a tactic. They were perfectly confident. Another tactic is breaking the line with the companion cavalry, waiting for the gap and then smashing through the line. We've seen that before. Okay, when we talk about the tactics of Darius, well, he did have tactics, and they weren't bad, were they? Were they? Apart from when he ran away, that wasn't a great tactic. But they weren't bad tactics. I mean, he had the tactic there of trying to outflank Alexander, preparing the ground, right? These all count. Trying to outflank Alexander with his vastly superior numbers, not qualities of troops now, but numbers, okay? He had a Scythian chariot plan, which didn't turn out great, okay? But when tactics fail, they look bad, do you know? And people get found out. So one day's tactics can be the next day's, you know, failure. That's the way things work, right? Okay, so that attack then straight up the middle by the Scythian chariots. After that, he doesn't really have much left, does he? After his outflanking movement on his Scythian chariots, he doesn't use his elephants very effectively, and of course he runs away in the middle of the battle, which isn't a great tactic either. So you points out of that, and that's a nice question, I think. And again, you can see you're going to see a similarity when we go on to the next one, 2010. You're going to see a similarity of how you'd split up the question like that. Okay, so we'll move on to question 2010 now, and you know, it's a great mystery to me as a marker in the Leaving Cert that these questions seem to be very similar. Why they're not sometimes people put a little bit better in them. And I think it's because of the battle. So preparations for Darius for the battle, course of the battle, consequence of the battle, 50 marks. This muddled people a little bit, you know. I'd say it would have been marked. This was the way the 50 marks would have been distributed. 50 equals 13, 13, 12, and 12. 24 and 26 for 4 paragraphs. That's the way they used to do it back in the old days, and 2010 now are considered the old days, okay? 13, 13, 12, and 12. That's what would have been marked at the time. Now, there is absolutely no point in you going back and repeating what it says in the marked schemes which are published on the SEC website. None at all. And the reason for that is because the marked scheme is only applicable to the year that it's written in. It's not applicable to any other year. So this is the way it was marked in 2010. I'm probably a bit too high there. Okay, so 13, 13, 12, 20. So this is how you'd structure, of course. Paragraph 1 would be preparations by Alexander for the battle. Paragraph 2 and 3 would be course of the battle. And paragraph 4 would be consequences of the battle. So now it doesn't look too different than the 2005 question, only that there's a part on consequences of the battle, which is important, okay? It means that you have to have knowledge of the time after the battle. Structure-wise, we're looking at 3 pages in total. And so the first page would be three quarters x 2, little bit of maths for you, that's 1.5, all right? And 3/4, about that, okay? Giving you 3 pages, that's what you're always looking for, okay? And of course, what will we say? Preparations for the battle, the same as we said in the last question. We talk about, and we can say 3 things as preparation for the battle. We could talk about the omens, we could talk about a speech as well. He makes a huge, big, long speech. He always makes these big speeches to his officers. Not all to all the men. He usually makes a speech to the officers, and then before the battle takes place, he usually makes them. He rides along the line and tries to gee up his troops and all that sort of stuff. Okay, and we can talk about the formation there, and we can also talk about the rest. Make sure you get the. It just shows how relaxed and how well prepared they were for the battle. Okay, and of course we could talk about Darius's poor preparation. Definitely getting that point about the troops staying up all night and nervous formation. And of course, you always have to get in when Darius says the preparation of the ground. This is vital. This was a far greater victory than Issus, because people said, "Oh, Issus, it would have been different if," that sort of thing that always happens. It would have been different if. Should never play a part in any of your answers. But there was that question mark over Alexander, and it was resolved decisively at Gaugamela. Course of the battle. Beginning, middle, end of the battle. Beginning, middle, and end of the battle, always the same, okay? Like we talked about, the same as 2005, all right? You do have to be the consequences of Alexander's battle. Now, we want 3/4 pages on the consequences. Well, Darius ran away, okay? Alexander won the battle with decisive victory. It lay open, places like Babylon, Susa, those big cities, which meant, of course, money for the troops. The troops loved money, and they loved what they called booty, okay? So there's that. Darius, as it turned out, would never return to face the third part of the battle, a third battle. Right? His own troops would betray him. You can mention that. And I'll tell you what happens, although I don't really like doing that, but you probably know anyway. His own troops would betray him, and the person who would betray him was actually fighting on his left-hand side in the battle, Bessus. Okay? Bessus would betray him. It proved, undoubtedly, who was the superior force. So all of those are consequences. You can say a lot of things for consequences. If you will, a little bit of a grey area there in the consequences. After all, I don't want all your answers sounding the same. So you work that one out. That's, of course, the best way to do in education, is work things out for yourself, right? That would be that question 2010. Nice. But you see, this thing, of course, could throw people a little bit, the fact that it's not split into parts. Now remember, plan your question. Everything's only as good as the strength of your plan, because if you don't, what will happen to you is you'll use the same piece of information twice, same quote twice, and you'll only get marked for it once. All right? Let's look at the last question then, 2015, the most recent question. part A equals 8 plus 7, 2 points, okay, equals 3/4 of a page. And make your paragraphs distinct, okay? So when you're structuring your answer, have your 8-mark question, either an indent or skip a line onto your next one. Indent is better, you know, it's better English, indent. When you're writing with the pen, that's what you're supposed to do. Back in the old days, you used to have to measure it in from the line. 7/8 of an inch was the indent. You don't have to do that anymore, it's all now, but not so fluid that you just come out with one block. Think of your marker, okay? I marked this in the year 2015. I marked 268 of those questions, right? When I came across an answer that was 1 paragraph, 2 paragraph of equal length, because marks are almost equal, right? And by the way, you don't have to give 8 for the first paragraph and 7 for the second paragraph. You give 7 for the first paragraph and 8 for the second paragraph if you want as a marker. And when I read things like, compare. So they changed the question slightly. I said, oh yeah, this is great, okay. And I said, they had the first point and they had Alexander's preparation and his advice by Parmenio and the fact that he rests his troops and they were all fed well and they were all confident. Meanwhile, Darius kept his troops all night. That's up all night. That's a direct comparison. Okay, that's a direct comparison. That's what they're looking for in that answer. And again, you get in as much detail as you can. Okay, you'd want probably maybe 2 points in first paragraph and 2 points in the second paragraph to achieve the full marks. And a lot of people were scoring 15 out of 15 in that question when they did it, because they would have been well prepared and they would have been basing their information mostly on Arrian. You know what Plutarch is like with battles, but don't ignore him, okay? Don't ignore him as well, okay? And of course now they moved away from this question, what happened in the battle, because they were getting, it's basically a narrative answer. So you need a little bit more. How did Alexander's tactics lead to the success of the battle? Oh, so here what you have to do is describe the tactics of the battle, but you also have to describe the battle. So you have to do 2 things in the question. So it's a little bit more challenging from the student, right? And so if you just write an account of the battle, beginning, middle, end, without reference to the tactics, your maximum mark out of 25 will be 18. You won't be able to score the top marks because you're not linking to this part of the question, okay? And that's a skill that you need to watch because they do it more and more and more since the year 2013. And there's a reason for that, and I'll tell you when you come back. So, it leads to success in the battle. His tactics lead to success in the battle. And it's Alexander's tactics. It's not Darius' lack of tactics. So watch that, okay? And see how you get on with that particular question, because it's a little bit tricky. Now, you would mention the companion cavalry attack. And in one of Alexander's tactics, you could turn it. Say you wanted to talk about Darius' side of the attack. You talk about it from the perspective of how Alexander defended it. It's a tactic, okay? You must talk about the oblique angle. How the whole battle was set up with Alexander moving. In other words, when you go into a battle situation like that, any sort of conflict situation like that, you're trying to dominate the scene, you're trying to set the agenda. You see these in football matches all the time, okay, where there's a terrific battle over midfield so people can set the agenda and the tone of the game. The then are not playing on their own terms. This is what coaches talk about all the time, isn't it? Right? Dominating the middle, you see? And of course, Alexander did this. The minute he got onto the battlefield, he begins to move at this oblique angle, taking them off the prepared area, messing with Darius' plan, seeing if he has a plan B. And his plan B didn't work. And that's a tactical success, all right? Tactical success. So you want 3 paragraphs on that, but I would say that what you should do is that let's just have a quick look at that, because you should frame the question, the 3 points. It will be marked 9, 8, 8, 3 points, okay, right? Your answer will be 1.5 pages. You should have the beginning middle, and end of the battle. Now you should have that because you have to do two things in this question. It's a little bit tricky. You have to show you have knowledge of the whole battle. At the same time, you have to have knowledge of the tactics. So in the beginning paragraph, you talk about Alexander's movement of the troops off the battlefield, the oblique angle. You do that because, in the beginning of the battle because that shows that you know it's a tactical move, but it's also at the beginning of the battle that you have knowledge of the beginning of the battle. So you're doing the two things at once. Okay? Yep. In the middle one, you talk about and you'll also talk in the beginning about the side unit. So if we number it the same as we did the last question, 1, 2, 3, but you focus the answer and say, well, you've got the response to the Scythian attack, you've got the movement of the troops in the beginning, that's good. In the middle, you've got the companion cavalry attack and Alexander's strategy. Alexander thought, you could argue that his whole strategy was to get at Darius and make him run. Do you know? And that would be a very, very important part for the middle of the thing. He doesn't run, he gets a horse, okay? So, you know what I mean. So, okay? So that sort of thing there. The companion cavalry attack, that's a tactic, and it's definitely a tactic to make Darius run, because, of course, in these Persian and Eastern cultures, if the leader ran, that was it. You were there as some sort of featly or repaying some sort of oath to the leader. And if the leader runs, then the oath is over. You're free, okay? And we could see this in the other battle, okay? And the immediate consequences of the battle. What were the immediate consequences of the battle? The key word here is the immediate consequences. We don't want to start talking about Persepolis and the money there and all that sort of stuff. That's a long-term consequence. The immediate consequence of the battle, what you want here is, the immediate part C would be 5 and 5. So we're going to want two immediate consequences, okay? Lord of Asia, he's in charge of Babylon, that's for sure. And the second point then would be and we could throw in there the victory. Okay, so that's how you would go about answering those questions. That should give you plenty to do for the weekend. And as I said, you can email them into me, answers when you get them done. I wouldn't do all three, by the way. I'd do maybe two of them, maybe do one preparation question and then one timed, possibly a closed book time question would be a good thing to do. Okay, thanks very much.